Every now and then you see something that is terrible, that even though it does happen on a fairly regular basis, it's something that stands out among all the rest. And in this particular example, I'm going to talk about Senior Airman Roger Fortson, who was shot by a sheriff's deputy on May 3rd, 2024, after somebody called in some sort of alleged domestic dispute, which, when you look at the body camera video, that makes absolutely no sense because, of course, we can hear on the police body camera video absolutely nothing at the door when the cop arrives. So if it's a domestic call, you would expect to hear something: yelling, fighting, arguing, screaming, something. And it appears that the person who called the police is the only person who has heard anything. And so I just got off of sitting here for 2.5 hours on Roland Martin Unfiltered and mostly listening. But there was a moment when I got to talk to the great civil rights attorney, Ben Crump, and ask him if he could share with the audience whether or not the police officer who killed Roger Fortson had any sort of history at that particular location, any sort of history with a department that might not be good with regard to his interactions with the community, anything. And Ben Crump at this moment, and today is the 9th of May, 2024. Ben Crump didn't know of anything, but I have to tell you, as somebody who has a few cops in my family, this is pretty shocking. I really wish my dad was here to see this particular video and comment on it, but I do have my nephew, who was a former police officer with the Virginia Beach Police Department. I also have my significant other, who is a federal police officer, and both of them said some very similar things, which is that you do have to articulate a danger when you have these sorts of deadly interactions. And of course, I can't wait to hear exactly what's going to be articulated with this one. First of all, for a cop to enter your residence, your home, they have to have more than probable cause. They have to have a warrant. They have to either have a search warrant or an arrest warrant. And it would appear 6 days into this story that this officer and this department had neither. The other thing is, when you enter somebody's residence, it's got to be for a pretty damn good reason. There doesn't seem to be a pretty good reason here. There can be some good reasons, right? Some exigent circumstances that involve having to use a certain amount of force to enter somebody's apartment. As it turns out, the first reports in this story were that the cops broke into Fortson's place, but actually the video shows us that he opened the door. He opened the door. He opens the door. He's standing there. He has his arms to his side. And in his right hand, he has a firearm, which he has every right to have. And the cop shoots him 5 or 6 times immediately, a second after the door opens. In what really is an outrageous situation. And as somebody who defends cops often, and because I have cops in my family, I know the other side of a lot of these stories. I've got to tell you that, this type of incident is exactly why Black Lives Matter showed up on the scene shortly after the very questionable death of Michael Brown. Another case where nobody could seem to figure out any probable cause. There was no warrant for arrest. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. And Darren Wilson shoots a teenager that doesn't even have a suspension on his record, which, by the way, even if he did, that shouldn't matter. And this is just an outrageous situation. At no point should anything like this happen. All right. We pay our tax money for the police, and certainly the police have a job to do. I do think that our society puts too much on the police. Everybody wants to make police parents and marriage counselors and truant officers, and they can't be all of those things. But this particular thing is, to me, outrageous and should never happen. That somebody opens the door and gets shot 5 and 6 times, shot dead 5 or 6 times at age 23, a member of our military, in a location in the country with a lot of military, just like Virginia. Without a warrant for arrest, without a search warrant, without any sound at the door, I'm not sure what this officer was thinking. Some of these cases you can say, well, I can see why somebody might show up, hot and heavy. This ain't one of those cases. So we'll see if anything else comes out in terms of information that changes that changes the perspective on this story. I tend to doubt it because this thing happened back on May 3rd. And what tends to happen when there's some sort of good reason for somebody to get shot standing at a door in their own residence, not committing any crime, the police are particularly good at getting information out. But you can tell already that we're into PR. They're saying that the cop had a right to defend himself. Well, Roger Fortson has a right to defend himself as well. How about that? Defend himself from what? A guy standing at a door with his arms to his side? I mean, at some point, these departments just have to admit we effed up. We made a mistake. I mean, I remember that happening a while ago in New York. It actually happened. A young man got shot on a roof. Cop goes up to the roof. The person is there. I think he was in his 20s, early 20s. Cop shot him dead. But they came out and admitted they messed up, like immediately, that there was no reason for that person to be shot. And sometimes I wish with these cases, it isn't going to bring anybody back. It's not going to change anything. But at some point, somebody has to admit the obvious. Our eyes are not lying to us. So it's a crazy thing. It's a video that I'm not really wanting to show because I hate showing these videos of people dying in their last moments, and particularly at 23 years old for absolutely no reason whatsoever. But on the show tonight, it did come up, and there'll be more to come. So good luck.